In a world constantly buzzing with distractions, where the demands on our time and attention seem unending, it's so easy to lose ourselves. We race through our daily lives, pulled in every direction by the noise of the outside world, work, social media, expectations, and comparisons. Amidst all of this, we forget to ask ourselves, who are we, really? What do we need to feel whole, to feel at peace? But there's a timeless truth that has been passed down for centuries, one that we often overlook. The Buddha, in his infinite wisdom, said, "You yourself, as much as anyone in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." Imagine that. You, just as you are worthy of love, not just from others, but from yourself. This powerful statement challenges everything we've been taught about love and happiness. Too often, we look outward for validation, for approval, for love. We search for it in our relationships, in our jobs, and in the approval of others. But the Buddhist teachings remind us that the key to lasting happiness, inner peace, and true transformation starts with one simple thing: self-love. The most significant, enduring relationship we will ever have is with ourselves. If we can learn to nurture that relationship, to love, understand, and honor ourselves, everything else in life begins to fall into place. But what does self-love truly mean? Is it about pampering ourselves or indulging in selfish desires? Not at all. Self-love is deeper, more profound. It's about developing self-awareness, cultivating compassion for ourselves, and creating the space for inner growth. It's about understanding who we are at our core, accepting our flaws, and embracing our strengths. It's about turning inward to find the peace and strength that we seek from external sources. In this video, we will embark on a journey to explore how to cultivate a healthy, nurturing relationship with ourselves, a relationship built on mindfulness, self-compassion, and self-awareness. We'll uncover the secrets of focusing on what truly matters, and we'll explore the simple yet powerful practices that can help us achieve inner peace and transformation. You may think you've heard it all before, but trust me, there's much more waiting for you. The answers to some of life's most profound questions, who am I? What do I need to feel whole? Lie within, just waiting for us to discover. So, if you're ready to embark on a path of self-discovery, to truly understand what it means to love yourself and transform your life from the inside out, then keep watching. The journey to a better, more fulfilling life starts right here with you. 1. Embracing self-focus, turning attention inward. Self-focus is often misunderstood as selfishness, but in reality, it's a profound act of self-care that allows us to be better for ourselves and others. It's not about withdrawing from the world or ignoring the needs of others. Rather, it's about intentionally turning our attention inward to explore the thoughts, emotions, and patterns that make us who we are. In Buddhism, this practice is known as svadhyaya, the self-study, or the art of deep reflection. It invites us to look at ourselves honestly, with an open heart and without judgment. When we make the effort to engage in self-reflection, we begin to peel back the layers of conditioning and experiences that have shaped us throughout our lives. These layers are made up of old beliefs, fears, expectations, and past hurts that we may not even realize are still influencing our behaviors. It's as if we've been living on autopilot, driven by subconscious forces that we haven't fully understood or confronted. The beauty of self-focus is that it provides us with the opportunity to bring these patterns to the surface and examine them with clarity. For example, many of us carry emotional baggage from childhood or past experiences that we haven't fully processed. These unresolved emotions can influence how we react in relationships or in difficult situations, often without us being aware of their impact. When we begin to turn our attention inward, we start to recognize these hidden forces that have been shaping our lives. We may notice certain fears cropping up in our interactions, a fear of rejection, or fear of failure. For instance, these aren't just random emotions. They stem from deeper parts of ourselves, often things we've buried or ignored. I had an experience like this not long ago, when I found myself becoming unexpectedly upset during a conversation. I couldn't pinpoint the reason behind my frustration. It seemed out of proportion to the situation, But when I took the time to pause and reflect on it, I realized that my frustration was tied to an old feeling of being misunderstood from my childhood. As I sat with this emotion, instead of brushing it aside or pushing it down, I allowed myself to truly feel it. I recognized that this old wound had been influencing how I responded, without me even realizing it. By simply acknowledging it, I was able to release its grip on me. This is the power of self-focus. It allows us to uncover and heal the emotional patterns that have been silently driving our lives. Just like we spend time nurturing our relationships with others, we must also dedicate time to nurture the most important relationship we will ever have, the one with ourselves. If we want to understand others deeply, we must first understand ourselves. This inner awareness gives us a kind of emotional intelligence that is critical for healthy, authentic relationships. When we know ourselves, we can offer compassion and empathy to others from a place of genuine understanding, rather than from a place of reaction or projection. But self-focus isn't always easy. In a world filled with distractions, it's easy to ignore our inner world and focus solely on the external. We might find ourselves endlessly scrolling through social media or running from task to task, all while avoiding the discomfort of self-reflection. The truth is, though, that these distractions are often ways we avoid facing ourselves. The busyness, the noise, they act as shields from the discomfort that might arise when we face our own thoughts and feelings. However, as the Buddha taught, peace and happiness begin from within. By learning to cultivate self-awareness, we stop running away from ourselves and begin to engage with the truth of who we are. It's through this self-engagement that we can begin to heal, grow, and evolve. The more we practice self-focus, the more we begin to understand the underlying patterns in our lives, the things we've carried from the past and the things we've been taught to believe about ourselves. The more we observe ourselves, the more we uncover the things that no longer serve us. We become aware of old thought patterns that hold us back, such as negative self-talk or the fear of not being enough. These are just stories we've been telling ourselves, but with self-awareness, we can rewrite them. We can choose a different narrative, one that is rooted in love, compassion, and acceptance. Self-focus also allows us to be more present in our daily lives. It's easy to get caught up in the chaos of the world, constantly worrying about the future or regretting the past. But when we focus on the present moment, we realize that the only time we truly have is now. Mindfulness, a key aspect of self-focus, helps us stay grounded in the present. Whether we're eating, walking, or talking to someone, by being present, we give ourselves the space to really experience life, rather than just rushing through it. One of the simplest ways to cultivate self-focus is by taking small moments throughout the day to check in with ourselves. How are we feeling right now? What do we need in this moment? These questions might seem small, but they are powerful because they invite us to slow down and reconnect with ourselves. Even a few minutes of deep breathing or a short moment of self-reflection can make a big difference in our ability to stay connected to our true selves. By developing this practice of self-awareness, we start to build a deeper relationship with ourselves. This relationship becomes the foundation of our emotional well-being. It's where we find our strength, our resilience, and our ability to heal. The more we understand ourselves, the more we can show up fully for the world around us. Self-focus is not an act of isolation. Rather, it's a way of strengthening our internal compass so that we can navigate the world with clarity and authenticity. It's about creating a solid inner foundation that allows us to live with purpose, wisdom, and compassion. The more we learn about ourselves, the more we are able to offer the world the very best version of who we are. And that, in turn, helps us build deeper, more meaningful relationships with others. Because we are coming from a place of truth, love, and self-awareness. 2. The dangers of external distractions. In today's fast-paced, hyper-connected world, external distractions are inescapable. Whether it's the constant buzz of social media notifications, the pressure to meet deadlines at work, or the ever-demanding responsibilities of family life, our attention is relentlessly pulled away from the things that truly matter, our own thoughts, emotions, and inner peace. We are constantly on the move, constantly busy, and yet, Many of us feel like we're drifting further from who we really are. The Buddha recognized this issue long ago, teaching us that when we allow distractions to dominate our lives, we lose touch with our true selves. Distractions, if left unchecked, create a barrier between us and the calm, peace, and clarity that we all seek. Our society tells us that being busy is a sign of productivity, success, and importance. Yet, this constant busyness is often a mask for deeper issues: disconnection from ourselves, an inability to listen to our own needs, and an ongoing sense of inner unrest. When we are constantly consumed by the world around us, we forget to turn inward and nurture the most vital relationship we will ever have, the one with ourselves. This disconnection can lead to burnout, anxiety, and dissatisfaction because we are never fully present in our own lives. The first step in protecting our inner focus is learning to set healthy boundaries. Boundaries are not about rejecting the world or isolating ourselves from others. Rather, they are about consciously choosing where to direct our energy. It's about recognizing that we are not infinite beings, and we need to protect our mental, emotional, and spiritual space in order to thrive. By setting boundaries, we create a sanctuary for ourselves, a space where we can slow down, reflect, and grow. This is not a selfish act, but an act of self-care, saying no to things that drain us, so that we can say yes to what nurtures our well-being. In a world where we are bombarded by constant notifications and demands, setting boundaries may mean saying no to certain social engagements, limiting our time on social media, or delegating tasks at work. It's not always easy, especially if we are used to people-pleasing or taking on too much, but it is essential if we want to maintain our peace and focus. Boundaries help us preserve our time and energy for the things that matter most, including our own self-care, relationships, and personal growth. When we say yes to ourselves, we invite more peace, balance, and clarity into our lives. One of the most effective tools for combating external distractions is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the art of being fully present in the moment, without distraction or judgment. It's about tuning into our senses, thoughts, and feelings with an open heart, and without the impulse to constantly react. Whether we're eating, walking, or engaging in conversation, mindfulness helps us step out of the noise and into the quiet space of the present moment. When we practice mindfulness, we begin to slow down and experience life as it is, not as we imagine it should be. We become more aware of our internal state, noticing when we are caught in distractions and gently bringing ourselves back to the present. One powerful Buddhist teaching encourages us to view our thoughts as clouds drifting through the sky. Just as clouds form, move, and dissolve without any resistance, our thoughts come and go without needing to attach any meaning or judgment to them. This practice of observing our thoughts without getting involved with them allows us to stay grounded and calm, no matter how chaotic the world around us may be. When we learn to observe our thoughts like passing clouds, we stop identifying with them. We realize that we are not our thoughts. They are simply mental phenomena that arise and fade away, just like the weather. This recognition helps us detach from external distractions and return to our center, where peace resides. In practical terms, mindfulness can be as simple as focusing on your breath for a few moments each day, or taking a mindful pause in the middle of a busy task. If you're walking, try to notice the sensation of your feet touching the ground, the sounds around you, the air on your skin. This simple practice helps us reconnect with the present moment, reducing the power of external distractions and quieting the mind. Another important aspect of mindfulness is learning to manage our relationship with technology. In the digital age, it's easy to become overwhelmed by the constant flow of information. Social media, news alerts, emails, they all compete for our attention, demanding that we stay connected at all times. But, as the Buddha teaches, when we allow ourselves to be pulled in every direction, we become fragmented and lose our sense of inner peace. One way to counter this is by intentionally limiting our screen time, setting times during the day when we check our emails or social media, and avoiding the constant temptation of checking our phones. By doing so, we can regain control over our attention and free ourselves from the constant pull of external stimuli. We must also remember that distractions come not only from technology, but from our own mind. Often, we are distracted by worries about the future, regrets about the past, or anxious thoughts about things we can't control. These mental distractions can be just as powerful as external ones, and it is in these moments that mindfulness becomes especially important. When we notice our mind wandering, we can gently guide it back to the present moment with compassion and patience. The Buddhist teachings remind us that our minds are like a garden. If we allow weeds, distractions, to grow unchecked, they will take over the space and choke the life out of the flowers, our inner peace and clarity. But with mindfulness and attention, we can cultivate a garden of calm and awareness, where our true nature can flourish. The more we practice mindfulness, the more we begin to experience the world as it truly is, rather than through the lens of distraction and confusion. In the end, the dangers of external distractions are not just about the noise we hear or the tasks that demand our attention. They represent the ways in which we disconnect from our own essence, from the quiet space of our inner world where peace, love, and wisdom reside. By learning to set boundaries, practicing mindfulness, and observing our thoughts without attachment, we can protect ourselves from these distractions and return to the calm, centered presence that is always available within us. This is the true freedom that comes from turning inward and reclaiming our focus. 3. Impermanence and non-attachment, embracing change. A central tenet of Buddhist philosophy is the teaching of anicca, which refers to the impermanent nature of all things. The Buddha encourages us to reflect on the fact that everything in life, our emotions, experiences, relationships, and even the world around us, is in a constant state of flux. Nothing remains fixed or permanent. When we embrace this truth, we begin to loosen our grip on the idea that things should stay the same. And in doing so, we begin to free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. We often attach ourselves to people, possessions, achievements, or certain outcomes, believing that they will provide us with stability and happiness. We grow fond of the idea that things should be predictable or under our control. But the reality is that life is always in motion, and no matter how hard we try to hold on to something, it will eventually change. Whether it's a relationship that drifts apart, a job that ends, or a moment of happiness that passes, the more we cling, the more we experience pain when those things inevitably slip away. Take, for example, the attachment to material possessions. In a consumer-driven society, many of us place value on owning things, believing that they will bring us lasting satisfaction. But as we know all too well, possessions lose their allure over time, or they break, become outdated, or simply fade into the background of our lives. When we become overly attached to these material things, we risk finding ourselves stuck in an endless cycle of desire, always wanting more, never fully content with what we have. This constant cycle of craving and loss breeds dissatisfaction, preventing us from experiencing the peace and joy that come from being at ease with what is. The Buddhist teachings on non-attachment don't mean that we shouldn't care about anything in life. Rather, they encourage us to hold things with open hands, appreciating them without the need to control or possess them. This practice is about releasing our tight grip on outcomes and accepting the natural ebb and flow of life, recognizing that nothing is meant to last forever. Embracing impermanence isn't about resigning ourselves to a life of constant change with a sense of helplessness. Instead, it's about seeing change as a natural and inevitable part of life, one that we can accept with grace and without resistance. The more we resist change, the more we struggle and suffer. But when we can let go of our attachment to how things should be, we find ourselves more at peace with what is. Consider the example of a river. The river flows continuously, adapting to the twists and turns of its path. It encounters rocks, obstacles, and changes in terrain, but it doesn't fight them. It simply flows, adjusting and moving forward. The river doesn't cling to the water that has already passed. It accepts that what's ahead will be different, and it carries on with its journey. This is a profound lesson for us. When we can stop trying to control the course of our lives and simply flow with it, We are able to navigate challenges with ease and adaptability. Just like the river, we can learn to release our attachment to rigid outcomes and expectations. We can embrace the unknown, knowing that life's changes are part of what makes it rich and meaningful. When we resist change, we create friction within ourselves. But when we accept change, we allow ourselves to flow more freely, like the river, finding peace in the constant process of transformation. In our relationships, we can practice non-attachment by embracing the impermanent nature of human connections. We love deeply and fully, without trying to possess or control the other person. Relationships can bring us joy and growth, but we also understand that they, too, are subject to change. People grow, evolve, and sometimes drift apart. When we hold on to our loved ones with open hands, we free ourselves from the pain of fear and loss, and we can appreciate the time we share with them without the burden of trying to keep them in one fixed place. In our careers or life ambitions, we often become attached to the idea of success, a specific job, title, or recognition. Yet, careers, like everything else, are fluid. What once seemed like a secure path may change unexpectedly, and what we think we want today may no longer fulfill us tomorrow. Non-attachment allows us to move forward with a sense of purpose and determination, but without clinging to a specific outcome. It's the willingness to let go of one dream in order to make space for new possibilities. This way, we live with openness and flexibility, ready to embrace new opportunities as they arise. On a more personal level, non-attachment to outcomes also helps us release the fear of failure. We often get caught in the idea that our happiness depends on achieving a specific goal or reaching a particular milestone. When we attach our happiness to a certain outcome, whether it's graduating, buying a house, or being in a certain relationship, we set ourselves up for suffering if things don't go as planned. But when we embrace change and understand that life's value doesn't depend on a fixed outcome, we open ourselves to the fullness of each moment, regardless of whether we've reached our destination. Another powerful aspect of embracing impermanence is letting go of attachment to past identities. We often define ourselves by what we've done, who we've been, or what we've experienced. But when we allow ourselves to remain open to change, we can free ourselves from the rigid self-concept we've built over the years. We are not fixed. We are always evolving, learning, and growing. By releasing our attachment to who we were or thought we should be, we give ourselves permission to become who we truly are. In each moment, this journey of embracing impermanence and non-attachment brings a sense of freedom. We stop holding on to the past, to expectations, and to the idea of control. Instead, we start to flow with life as it is, accepting that change is not our enemy but our greatest teacher. When we surrender to the natural flow of life, we experience greater peace and openness, embracing whatever comes our way with grace and ease. The more we practice this way of being, the more we realize that life's impermanence is not something to fear but something to celebrate. Every moment, every relationship, every opportunity is precious, not because it will last forever, but because it is here, now. Life is not about holding on but about embracing the beauty of each unfolding moment. When we learn to live in alignment with impermanence, we experience a deep sense of freedom, wisdom, and peace, as we come to realize that change is not something that disrupts our lives, but something that enriches them. 4. Mindfulness and meditation, paths to inner peace. Mindfulness and meditation are essential practices for cultivating inner peace and clarity, especially in today's world, where the constant noise and distractions often drown out our inner voice. Meditation provides us with the sacred space to step away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life and enter a realm of stillness where we can observe our thoughts, emotions, and reactions from a place of awareness rather than reactivity. In meditation, the primary focus is often on something simple and grounding: our breath. With each inhale and exhale, we bring our attention back to the present moment. We learn to focus on our body sensations, the feeling of the breath entering and leaving, the rhythm of our heartbeat, the sensations in our limbs. If our mind wanders, and it inevitably will, we gently guide our attention back. acknowledging the distraction without judgment, and return to the present moment. This is the heart of mindfulness, the practice of simply being aware of the present, without getting lost in thoughts about the past or future. Through this practice, we begin to detach from the constant chatter of the mind. We stop identifying with every fleeting thought or emotion that passes through us. We come to realize that we are not our thoughts. We are the space in which those thoughts arise. Over time, we develop greater self-awareness. We begin to notice the patterns in our thinking, such as the tendencies to judge ourselves, to fear the future, or to ruminate on past mistakes. This awareness brings a sense of freedom. We begin to choose how we respond, instead of reacting automatically based on unconscious habits. I remember a time when my life felt particularly chaotic. I was overwhelmed by stress, constantly juggling responsibilities and emotions, feeling disconnected from my center. I decided to attend a meditation retreat, hoping to find some clarity. The first moment I sat in meditation, I felt a shift within me. It was as though the world slowed down. I focused on my breath, feeling it move through me, and with each inhale and exhale, I began to release the weight that had been weighing me down. I realized in that moment how powerful stillness could be. In that stillness, I found a deep peace that had been buried beneath the noise of my life. That retreat transformed my understanding of meditation. It was not just about finding peace, but about learning to be present with whatever arises, without judgment or resistance. Meditation isn't just about sitting in silence. It's about learning to cultivate mindfulness in every moment of our lives. Whether we're eating, walking, or talking with others, mindfulness encourages us to stay fully present and engaged. In everyday activities, we tend to rush through tasks, distracted by thoughts of the past or worries about the future. Mindfulness invites us to slow down and engage fully with the present moment. When we're mindful, we connect more deeply with what we're doing. We taste our food more fully, enjoy our conversations with others more richly, and experience our surroundings with greater appreciation. Through mindfulness, we come to realize how often we are caught up in mental patterns that are automatic and unconscious. We may catch ourselves judging others, or getting frustrated when things don't go according to plan, or comparing ourselves to people on social media. Mindfulness helps us observe these tendencies with compassion, rather than shame or frustration. We can start to see these tendencies for what they are, just passing thoughts and feelings, and choose not to act on them. I recall a moment during a simple walk through the park, when I decided to practice mindfulness. Normally, my mind would race with worries, judgments, and distractions. But that day, I focused on the sensation of my feet touching the ground, the feeling of the cool breeze on my face, the sound of birds chirping above. In that moment, I realized how much of my life had been spent in a mental state of either regret or anticipation, rather than simply being. Mindfulness, even in such simple moments, brought me back to the truth of the present. In that stillness, I could appreciate life exactly as it was, without needing to change anything. This practice of being fully present, of observing ourselves without judgment, opens the door to deeper self-awareness and compassion. And this is where the practice of self-compassion becomes essential. Self-compassion is the practice of treating ourselves with the same care, kindness, and understanding that we offer to a dear friend. The Buddha taught that we should recognize our own suffering and respond to it with the same love and patience that we would show to others. Yet, many of us are our harshest critics. We criticize ourselves for every mistake, hold on to past regrets, and judge ourselves for not being good enough. This constant self-criticism keeps us trapped in a cycle of unworthiness. Self-compassion, on the other hand, is about acknowledging our struggles and embracing our imperfections. It's about offering ourselves the space to be human, to make mistakes, to learn, and to grow. It is the gentle art of accepting ourselves, flaws and all, and treating ourselves with care, not because we're perfect, but because we're worthy of love, just as we are. In practicing self-compassion, we begin to heal the wounds we've carried for so long. One powerful Buddhist practice for cultivating self-compassion is metta bhavana, the practice of loving-kindness meditation. In this practice, we start by offering love and well wishes to ourselves. We might silently repeat phrases like, "May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease." As we offer these wishes to ourselves, we remind ourselves that we deserve happiness and peace, just like anyone else. We then gradually expand this love to others, sending kindness to loved ones, acquaintances, and even those we may have difficulties with. The practice helps us create a ripple effect of kindness, beginning with ourselves and extending outward into the world. Over time, this practice of loving kindness cultivates a deep sense of self-love and acceptance. Self-compassion is not a quick fix or something that can be turned on and off. It's a process, one that requires patience and consistent practice. But over time, we begin to see ourselves in a new light. We stop holding on to past mistakes and learn to treat ourselves with the kindness we deserve. As we become more compassionate with ourselves, we find that we can extend this same compassion to others. The more we accept and love ourselves, the more we can genuinely offer that love and acceptance to the world. Mindfulness and meditation are not just practices that we do for a few minutes a day. They are ways of being in the world. They invite us to slow down, to listen to our own hearts, and to recognize our own inherent worth. By cultivating mindfulness, we make space for peace and clarity in our lives. By embracing self-compassion, we open the door to healing and growth. Together, mindfulness and meditation create a powerful foundation for living a life of peace, love, and authenticity. 5. Cultivating self-compassion and self-love. To truly focus on ourselves, it is essential to first learn to treat ourselves with compassion and love. We often hear about offering kindness to others, but the question arises, do we extend that same compassion to ourselves? The Buddhist teachings remind us that we should show ourselves the same understanding, patience, and kindness that we would give to a dear friend in times of difficulty. Yet, so many of us are often our harshest critics. We hold ourselves to impossibly high standards, berating ourselves for every perceived flaw, mistake, or shortcoming. We replay old mistakes in our minds, feel guilty for things we cannot change, and forget the essential truth that we are human, imperfect, and always growing. Self-compassion begins with the act of acknowledging our struggles, not with judgment, but with an open heart. It is about recognizing that it is okay to not have everything figured out, to not be perfect, and to experience challenges without condemning ourselves. So often, we are quick to judge ourselves, but self-compassion is about giving ourselves permission to be vulnerable, to feel pain, and to make mistakes without carrying the weight of shame or guilt. It's a practice of treating ourselves with the same kindness we would extend to someone we love, someone who is struggling, learning, and trying their best. I remember a time in my life when I made a significant mistake that I felt would define me forever. I felt like a failure, and the inner critic within me was relentless. I couldn't understand why I had made such a mistake, and I kept replaying it in my mind. But over time, I realized that, by not allowing myself to forgive and show compassion to myself, I was only prolonging my suffering. The more I judged myself, the deeper the wound became. It wasn't until I allowed myself to be vulnerable, to acknowledge that I was human, and to release the burden of self-blame, that healing began. Self-compassion opened the door to my emotional growth, teaching me that my mistakes didn't define me. They were simply opportunities to learn and evolve. When we embrace imperfection, we open the door to growth. We stop seeing our flaws as permanent, irredeemable parts of ourselves, but as part of the ongoing process of becoming. When we stop expecting perfection and allow ourselves to grow from our mistakes, we free ourselves from the weight of fear and shame. We allow space for healing to unfold, and in doing so, we begin to connect with a deep sense of worthiness, the understanding that we are enough, just as we are, in all our imperfections. A powerful Buddhist practice for cultivating self-compassion is metta bhavana, loving kindness meditation. This practice begins with the simple yet profound act of sending love and well wishes to ourselves. It may feel awkward at first, especially for those of us who are not accustomed to offering kindness to ourselves. But, as with any practice, the more we do it, the more natural it becomes. In metta bhavana, We might start by silently repeating phrases like, "May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease." These words are not just affirmations, but a recognition of our inherent worth. In offering ourselves kindness, we begin to connect with our own inner goodness. At first, it may be difficult to feel this love for ourselves. Our inner critics may protest, telling us that we are undeserving of love. But over time, with consistent practice, we begin to feel a shift. As we begin to send love to ourselves, we gradually expand this love to others, to our loved ones, to strangers, and even to those we may have difficulty with. This practice of sending loving kindness creates a ripple effect of compassion that can transform our entire approach to life. We start to realize that, just like everyone else, we deserve happiness and peace. What is remarkable about Metta Bhavana is that it invites us to expand our love outward. We begin by offering love to ourselves, and then we gradually extend it to others. We send well wishes to people who are struggling, to those who are difficult to love, and even to those we may be in conflict with. Over time, this practice helps us cultivate a deep sense of acceptance and love, both for ourselves and for others. It teaches us that love is not a finite resource. It is something that grows the more we give it. The more we offer love and compassion, the more we open ourselves to receiving it, creating an abundant, loving flow within and around us. Through self-compassion, we stop punishing ourselves for our perceived flaws and start embracing our wholeness. The more we practice offering ourselves kindness, the more we begin to believe in our own worthiness. We move away from the cycle of self-criticism and self-rejection, and towards a place of self-acceptance and peace. By embracing self-love, we unlock our potential for growth, healing, and transformation. When we love ourselves unconditionally, we open up to the possibility of joy and freedom, and we can focus on our well-being with far greater ease. This practice of self-compassion is not just a one-time act. It is an ongoing process, a lifetime journey. Some days we may struggle more than others, but that is part of the process. The key is not to demand perfection, but to treat ourselves with the same patience and care that we would offer to others in their times of need. In doing so, we begin to live with greater ease, accepting the ebb and flow of life, and loving ourselves as we are, imperfect, but always worthy of love, growth, and compassion. 6. Setting boundaries and prioritizing self-care. To maintain a strong sense of focus on our personal growth, one of the most essential practices is learning to set clear boundaries. Boundaries are not about isolating ourselves from others or being rigid in our interactions. Rather, they are about creating a healthy space that protects our mental, emotional, and physical health. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, where we honor our own needs and values while still being able to engage with others in meaningful ways. Often, when we think of boundaries, we imagine them as walls, keeping people out. However, in reality, boundaries are more like fences that define the space we need to thrive, while still allowing the people and experiences that nourish us to flow in. They help us create balance in our lives, preventing burnout and exhaustion by ensuring that we don't overextend ourselves. I've learned from personal experience just how important boundaries are for maintaining balance. For many years, I found myself overwhelmed, stretched too thin, and constantly feeling like I was on the edge of burnout. I said yes to too many things out of a sense of obligation or the fear of disappointing others. And what happened? I ended up feeling exhausted, resentful, and disconnected from my own passions. I wasn't able to give my best to any of the areas of my life because I wasn't honoring my own limits. It wasn't until I began to set clearer boundaries that I could truly begin to regain my energy and focus. Setting boundaries can sometimes feel uncomfortable, especially if we're used to putting others' needs before our own. It's natural to worry about how others might perceive us, fearing they will think we are selfish or unkind. But the truth is, when we don't set boundaries, we end up neglecting ourselves, and in turn, we aren't able to be fully present for others. Just like when we're flying in an airplane and the safety instructions tell us to put on our own oxygen mask before helping others. Setting boundaries is about ensuring that we are well enough to care for those around us. For me, Learning to say no was a pivotal moment. Saying no isn't just about rejecting others. It's about protecting our energy. For example, there was a time when I had to turn down a work project that seemed exciting on the surface, but would have taken too much time and energy away from the things that mattered most to me. At first, I felt guilty, but as I allowed myself to prioritize my well-being, I realized how empowering it felt to make that choice. Saying no to things that didn't align with my values allowed me to say yes to what truly mattered: my personal growth, my relationships, and my creative passions. Setting boundaries isn't always easy, and it requires self-awareness. It involves regularly checking in with ourselves and asking, am I feeling drained by this situation or relationship? Is this decision in alignment with my well-being? When we take the time to listen to these inner cues, we can make more conscious choices that support our health and happiness. One boundary that has been particularly helpful for me is setting aside quiet time for self-care. Whether it's a few minutes each day to meditate or a longer break on the weekend to disconnect and recharge. Having this time to reconnect with myself helps me maintain my focus and energy. Prioritizing self-care is an essential part of setting boundaries. Self-care isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It's about giving ourselves permission to rest, to engage in activities that nourish our mind and body, and to create space for relaxation and rejuvenation. In a world that often glorifies busyness and productivity, self-care can feel like an afterthought. But without it, we cannot sustain the energy needed for our personal growth. It's like trying to water a garden without turning on the hose. Eventually, the plants will wither. We need to fill our own cups first, so we can continue to pour love, energy, and compassion into the world around us. A key aspect of self-care is knowing when to step back. It's easy to get caught up in the constant hustle, trying to juggle work, family, and personal aspirations. But, as I've learned, true growth comes when we allow ourselves the space to breathe. I've made it a practice to regularly check in with myself. Am I feeling overwhelmed? Do I need a break? Am I getting enough rest? By setting aside time for these moments of reflection, I've been able to make better decisions about how to allocate my time and energy. It's not about doing everything. It's about doing what matters most and giving ourselves permission to let go of the rest. One important thing I've discovered about setting boundaries is that they are not static. They evolve with us. As we grow and change, so too will our boundaries. Sometimes, we may need to tighten them to protect our peace, and at other times, we might feel comfortable relaxing them to allow for more openness and connection. The key is to remain attuned to our needs and to honor those needs as they arise, without guilt or shame. It's an ongoing process of listening, adjusting, and caring for ourselves in ways that align with our values and goals. Setting boundaries and prioritizing self-care is not just a practice, it's a way of life. It's about reclaiming our energy and our time, recognizing that we are worthy of both. By creating these clear distinctions between where our energy goes and where it should stay, we give ourselves the gift of inner peace and strength. In doing so, we create the space to focus on what truly matters: our personal growth, our well-being, and our deeper connection to ourselves and others. And as we honor our own needs, we find that we can show up in the world more fully, more authentically, and with a heart that is open and ready to give. 7. Reflecting on personal values and goals. Reflecting on our personal values and goals is a deeply transformative practice. It's not just about checking things off a list or pursuing what's expected of us. It's about understanding what truly matters to us at the core of our being. Too often, we go through life reacting to external pressures from society, family, or even our own conditioned thoughts without pausing to ask ourselves, what do I really want from life? What do I stand for? The Buddha taught that a fulfilling life is one that is aligned with our deepest values and aspirations, not one shaped by fleeting desires or the approval of others. This alignment doesn't happen by chance. It requires conscious reflection, intentional action, and the courage to step away from societal expectations in order to live authentically. In the quiet moments of introspection, we begin to uncover the truth of who we are, beyond the roles we play or the masks we wear. Living with purpose means living in alignment with these core values. For example, if we deeply value compassion, we might ask ourselves how our actions reflect that value. Do we show kindness to ourselves and others? Do we actively choose to help those in need? If we value growth, we might reflect on whether we're engaging in practices or relationships that nurture our development. When we make choices that reflect our values, we create a sense of inner harmony, where our actions feel genuine and our life feels like it's truly ours. I remember a period in my life when I was focused solely on achieving success in my career. On the outside, everything seemed fine. I had a good job, financial security, and respect from others. But deep down, I felt empty. I began to realize that the pursuit of success was based on a value of external validation rather than on what was most important to me. When I reflected on my values, I found that connection, authenticity, and personal growth were far more meaningful to me than accolades or titles. This realization changed everything. I made shifts in my career and relationships to align more with these values. And over time, I found that I was much more at peace with myself. Reflecting on personal goals is just as crucial. Goals are often driven by external influences, the idea of what we should accomplish or what society expects from us. But to be truly fulfilled, our goals need to come from a place of deep self-awareness and alignment with our values. Without this reflection, we may chase after goals that don't truly bring us joy, and the sense of achievement feels hollow. Setting goals that resonate with our inner purpose requires us to ask questions like, what do I hope to contribute to the world? What kind of person do I want to be? How do I want to feel when I look back on my life? For instance, if one of your core values is family, your goals might revolve around creating strong relationships or spending quality time with loved ones. If your value is creativity, your goals might be to express yourself through art, writing, or innovation. The practice of regularly reflecting on values and goals also helps us navigate life's uncertainties. Change is inevitable, and at times, we may feel lost or unsure of which direction to take. When we're grounded in our values, we have a compass that guides us. For example, if a job opportunity comes up that requires us to move to a new city, the decision can be overwhelming. But if we are clear about our values, like community or personal freedom, we can assess whether this opportunity will help us move closer to a life aligned with those values. It's important to remember that values evolve over time. As we grow and change, so do our priorities. What mattered to us 10 years ago may no longer hold the same weight. That's okay. Reflection is not a one-time exercise, but an ongoing process. Regularly revisiting our values and goals allows us to recalibrate, ensuring that we're always moving toward a life that feels authentic and fulfilling. An example of this evolution came when I decided to spend more time giving back to the community. Years ago, I had been very focused on personal success, career, status, and accomplishments. But over time, I began to realize that what truly nourished my soul was helping others, contributing to causes that mattered, and being a part of something larger than myself. So, I made a conscious decision to adjust my goals, to create space in my life for volunteer work and social impact. This shift gave my life a new depth and purpose that I hadn't anticipated. By reflecting on our values and goals, we can create a life that is more than just a series of events or milestones. It becomes a journey of meaning, where each decision feels aligned with who we are and who we wish to become. This practice of introspection leads us toward greater peace, clarity, and fulfillment because we no longer feel as though we're being pulled in 1,000 directions. Instead, we move forward with confidence, knowing that we are following our true path, one step at a time. This process is not always easy. It requires courage to face the parts of ourselves that may feel uncomfortable, and it asks us to let go of what no longer serves us. But the rewards are profound. A life that feels true to who we are, a sense of inner peace, and the joy that comes from knowing we are living with purpose. 8. Embracing vulnerability and authenticity. Vulnerability is a concept that many of us tend to avoid, often associating it with weakness or fear. Society tells us that to be strong, we must remain guarded, show only our best selves, and never let anyone see our flaws. However, In Buddhist philosophy, vulnerability is seen not as something to fear, but as a source of strength. It is through embracing vulnerability that we truly connect with ourselves and others, living a life of deeper authenticity and freedom. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we stop pretending to be something we're not. We let go of the masks we wear, the roles we play to fit in or gain approval. We shed the armor that we've built over the years to protect ourselves from the world, and, in doing so, we allow others to see us for who we truly are. This act of shedding pretense is incredibly freeing. It means we no longer have to keep up with external expectations, and we stop carrying the burden of perfection. Instead, we embrace the imperfections and flaws that make us human. In Buddhism, this process is often referred to as right speech or right action, in which our words and deeds reflect our true inner nature. When we speak and act from a place of authenticity, we live in harmony with our values. We no longer feel the tension between who we are and what we project to the world. By embracing vulnerability, we live in a way that aligns with our inner truths, rather than the external pressures to conform. Authenticity is the natural outcome of embracing vulnerability. When we let go of the need to be perfect or to please others, we become more attuned to our own desires, needs, and emotions. We no longer feel the need to suppress our feelings or pretend to be something we're not. Instead, we speak our truths, express our emotions openly, and show up in the world as our truest selves. This doesn't mean we do so without consideration for others, but it means we don't hide behind fear of judgment. Living authentically creates an environment where we can experience deeper connections with others. When we are honest about our struggles, our joys, and our vulnerabilities, we invite others to do the same. This openness fosters genuine relationships built on trust and mutual understanding. The people we meet feel our sincerity, and in turn, they feel safe to be vulnerable with us. 2. It's through these authentic exchanges that we form the most profound and lasting connections. I can remember a time in my life when I was very hesitant to show my vulnerabilities. I thought that if I opened up too much, I would be rejected, seen as weak or unworthy. I put on a strong front, always appearing confident and in control. But this left me feeling isolated and disconnected from those around me. It wasn't until I started embracing my vulnerabilities that I truly began to experience deeper intimacy with others. I shared my fears, my insecurities, and my past hurts. And what I found was that people not only accepted me, but they appreciated my authenticity. I realized that by being vulnerable, I was inviting others to see me as I truly am, not as a facade or a version of myself I thought I needed to project. One of the most profound lessons Buddhism teaches us about vulnerability is that it requires courage. It takes courage to face our own fears, to admit when we are struggling, and to allow ourselves to be seen in our raw, unpolished form. But by cultivating that courage, we can learn to live fearlessly. Vulnerability isn't about being weak. It's about being brave enough to show up as we are, without hiding, without shame. It's about allowing ourselves the grace to be human. In the same way that a flower opens up to the sun, revealing its true beauty, we too can open ourselves up to life. The more we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, the more we give ourselves permission to grow. We shed the walls we've built around our hearts, creating space for healing, love, and connection. And in doing so, we find peace in simply being ourselves, in accepting our imperfections, and in living authentically. Another powerful way vulnerability is embraced in Buddhism is through compassion. When we open ourselves up to the truth of our vulnerabilities, we also open ourselves up to the suffering of others. We see that we are not alone in our struggles, that all human beings share in this experience of pain and joy. By embracing vulnerability, we develop a deep sense of empathy and a genuine desire to help others on their own journeys. Being vulnerable isn't a one-time event. It's a lifelong practice of constantly choosing authenticity over pretense. It's choosing courage over comfort, truth over appearances. Each time we choose to show up fully as ourselves, we move one step closer to the peace that comes from self-acceptance and connection. As we grow in our vulnerability, we begin to realize that the things we once feared most, rejection, judgment, failure, are simply part of the human experience. They are impermanent, just as all things are. And by embracing them with openness and compassion, we learn to face them with grace. Through vulnerability, we discover a strength that lies not in resistance, but in acceptance of ourselves, of others, and of the world as it is. In the end, vulnerability becomes a gateway to living a life filled with meaning, purpose, and authentic connection. The more we allow ourselves to be seen, the more we give others permission to do the same. And in that shared vulnerability, we find the true beauty of human existence, not in our perfection, but in our imperfect, authentic selves. 9. Finding balance in life. Finding balance in life is not a one-time achievement, but an ongoing practice. In a world that constantly demands more from us, more time, more attention, more energy, it's easy to feel pulled in multiple directions. The pressure to excel in our careers, maintain relationships, stay fit, and manage countless other responsibilities can leave us feeling overwhelmed. In these moments, balance can seem like an unattainable goal. However, the Buddhist teachings on the middle way provide a profound guide to navigating life with harmony and peace. The middle way teaches us to avoid the extremes of self-indulgence and self-mortification. It's about finding a path that is neither too lax nor too rigid, but one that reflects moderation and mindfulness in every aspect of our lives. When we strive for balance, we are not seeking perfection, but rather a way of being that aligns with our deepest values and supports our well-being. To begin finding balance, we must first acknowledge that life's demands will never perfectly align. There will always be moments when work demands more of our time, or when personal issues require our emotional energy. The key is to recognize when things are out of sync and take conscious steps to restore equilibrium. This is where mindfulness plays a critical role. When we are mindful, we are better able to tune into our needs, both physical and emotional. We learn to sense when we are giving too much in one area of life and not enough in another. For example, you might notice that you've been spending long hours at work, neglecting time with loved ones or your own self-care. This awareness is the first step toward bringing balance back into your life. A practical way to cultivate balance is to intentionally carve out time for each area of your life that is important to you. This means setting boundaries that honor your need for rest, recreation, and reflection. In Buddhist practice, there is a concept called sila, or ethical conduct, which includes living in a way that respects both ourselves and others. Setting boundaries is a form of sila. It ensures that we aren't overcommitting or allowing our resources to be depleted by demands that don't serve our well-being. Take relationships. For example, we often find ourselves pulled between the needs of family, friends, and colleagues. While it's important to show up for the people we care about, we must also recognize when we are giving too much, to the point where we sacrifice our own needs. Healthy relationships require balance, and this balance comes from being clear about what we can offer without draining ourselves. The Buddhist teaching on right speech reminds us that communication should be honest but also compassionate, offering a gentle reminder that we must speak up when we need to set boundaries. In our work lives, balance can often be more elusive. Many of us have been conditioned to hustle and to see our worth in terms of productivity. But when we do so at the expense of our health, happiness, and relationships, we lose sight of what truly matters. Finding balance at work means knowing when to push forward and when to step back. It means recognizing that work is important, but so is taking time to rest, recharge, and nurture our personal lives. The Buddha often spoke of the importance of right effort, which doesn't mean working tirelessly, but working with mindfulness and purpose. When we approach our tasks with presence and clarity, we work more efficiently and sustainably. Self-care is another crucial element in maintaining balance. In a world that encourages us to give, and give, it's easy to overlook our own needs. But self-care isn't just a luxury. It's a necessity for maintaining emotional and physical health. Whether it's engaging in a hobby, spending time in nature, or simply resting, self-care helps us replenish our energy and maintain our sense of well-being. The Buddhist teachings on right mindfulness encourage us to check in with ourselves regularly, asking, "How am I feeling right now?" It's through this practice of self-awareness that we can recognize when we're feeling drained and need to step back and nurture ourselves. Balance also requires flexibility. Life is fluid, and no plan or routine can account for everything. There will be times when your balance tips in one direction, when work demands more time, or a family crisis requires your emotional presence. During these times, it's essential to show yourself compassion and not to guilt yourself for not achieving perfect balance. Remember, balance is about the overall flow, not rigidly adhering to a schedule or achieving a perfect harmony at every moment. It's about adjusting and adapting to life's constant changes. The process of finding balance is deeply tied to our capacity to let go of control. The Buddha teaches that attachment to outcomes, schedules, and expectations causes suffering. By releasing our attachment to a fixed way of living, we open ourselves to greater ease and flexibility. When we learn to flow with the rhythms of life, we find that balance emerges naturally, without force. Lastly, balance requires us to embrace the impermanence of life. As the Buddha said, nothing is permanent, and everything changes. Just as the seasons shift, our circumstances shift as well. We may be in a period of intense work, followed by a time of rest or deep personal reflection. Embracing the ebb and flow of life's changes allows us to stay grounded, even when external circumstances challenge us. In finding balance, we create a life that is more aligned with who we are and what we truly value. It's not about fitting everything into a perfect, rigid structure. Instead, it's about creating harmony between our work, our relationships, and our self-care in a way that nurtures our soul. By embracing balance, we cultivate a life that feels more peaceful, intentional, and full of purpose. 10. Letting go of comparison and judgment. In today's world, where social media constantly highlights the lives, achievements, and successes of others, comparison has become an almost unavoidable habit. With just a scroll or a swipe, we are bombarded by images of perfect families, beautiful vacations, successful careers, and seemingly flawless lives. It's easy to fall into the trap of measuring our own worth against these snapshots of others. But comparison, while it might seem like a way to gauge where we stand, does nothing but steal our joy and diminish our sense of self-worth. The Buddhist teachings on non-judgment offer us a profound alternative. He reminds us that the key to peace lies in accepting ourselves as we are, not as we think we should be based on someone else's journey. In fact, each person's path is uniquely their own, shaped by a multitude of factors, including their experiences, choices, and circumstances. To compare ourselves to others is to ignore this profound truth. Just as no two rivers are identical in their flow, no two lives are the same in their unfolding. And this diversity is what makes our individual journeys so meaningful and valuable. When we compare ourselves to others, we are often measuring ourselves against standards that don't serve our unique needs or aspirations. We might see someone else's success and think, "Why am I not there yet?" Or perhaps we see someone else's peaceful demeanor and think, "Why can't I be more like that?" But these thoughts come from a place of misunderstanding that our worth is tied to how we stack up against others, rather than being rooted in who we truly are. To stop comparing ourselves to others is to let go of the illusion that there is a single path to success, happiness, or fulfillment. We release the pressure of trying to measure up to someone else's timeline or life narrative. By doing so, we make room for greater self-compassion. We start to see our own achievements, no matter how small they seem, as worthy and meaningful. We begin to appreciate our own strengths, weaknesses, and growth without the burden of judgment. A personal example might help here. I once found myself feeling discouraged after seeing someone I admired reach a major career milestone. I started questioning my own progress, wondering why I hadn't achieved the same level of success. It was only when I took a step back and reminded myself that my journey was uniquely my own that I began to feel relief. I realized that comparing my behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel wasn't fair to myself. Every step I had taken, every challenge, every setback, every small victory was an essential part of my own growth. And in that realization, I found peace. The Buddha also taught us that judgment is a heavy burden. We tend to judge ourselves harshly, and this self-criticism often spills over into how we view others. We measure people's worth based on their appearance, success, or social status, and in doing so, we miss the deeper truth of their humanity. When we let go of judgment, we stop seeing people as objects to be evaluated, and instead, we see them as fellow travelers on this shared journey of life. Each person, with their own strengths and struggles, is as deserving of love and compassion as we are. Letting go of comparison and judgment is a profound act of liberation. It frees us from the constant pressure of not enough success, not enough beauty, not enough achievement. When we stop comparing ourselves to others, we begin to understand that our worth is inherent and not dependent on external validation. We stop seeking approval and start looking within for the recognition we truly need. This inner peace is something that no external measure can provide. In Buddhist philosophy, this practice is often referred to as mudita, or sympathetic joy. It is the practice of rejoicing in the happiness and successes of others, rather than feeling envy or resentment. When we release comparison, we can begin to embrace mudita, celebrating not only our own achievements, but also the achievements of others. This shift in perspective transforms our relationship with the world around us. Instead of feeling threatened or diminished by others' successes, we feel inspired and uplifted. Letting go of comparison also allows us to reconnect with our authentic selves. The pressure to conform, to be like someone else, can cloud our understanding of who we truly are. When we stop measuring ourselves against external standards, we give ourselves permission to be fully ourselves, with all of our quirks, strengths, and flaws. We begin to celebrate our individuality, recognizing that it is this very uniqueness that adds value to the world. This process of embracing our own path is an ongoing practice. It requires us to consistently check in with ourselves and ask, am I comparing myself to others right now? Am I judging myself or someone else? In these moments, we can gently bring ourselves back to the present and remind ourselves that our journey is unfolding just as it should. It may not look like anyone else's journey, but that's exactly what makes it meaningful. By letting go of comparison and judgment, we create space for greater self-acceptance and peace. We learn to appreciate where we are, who we are, and the unique path that we are walking. And in this acceptance, we find the freedom to grow, to evolve, and to live a life that is truly our own. 11. Practicing gratitude and contentment. Gratitude is not just a fleeting feeling or a polite gesture. It is a transformative practice that has the power to completely shift our perception of the world. In a society that often emphasizes what we lack, more money, more success, more possessions, it's easy to fall into the trap of always wanting more. But when we consciously choose to focus on what we already have, we begin to experience life from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. The Buddhist teachings on contentment invite us to appreciate the present moment, exactly as it is. He reminds us that true happiness doesn't come from accumulating more or chasing external achievements. Instead, it arises when we cultivate contentment with what we already possess, both materially and spiritually. Contentment is not about settling for less or resigning ourselves to mediocrity. Rather, it is about fully embracing the present, acknowledging the richness in our lives, and finding peace in the here and now. When we practice gratitude, we begin to rewire our minds to notice the good in our lives. Instead of being overwhelmed by what is missing or what we think we need, we start to see all the blessings that are already present, however small or seemingly insignificant they may appear. Gratitude invites us to pause and reflect on the moments of joy, beauty, and kindness that we often overlook in the rush of daily life. For instance, the simple act of waking up in the morning, breathing in the fresh air, or sharing a warm meal with a loved one can bring us a profound sense of gratitude. These everyday experiences, often taken for granted, are, in fact, the foundation of our happiness. When we practice gratitude, we are acknowledging the beauty and abundance of these simple moments, which often go unnoticed when our minds are preoccupied with what we don't have or what we wish was different. I remember a time when I was feeling overwhelmed with the demands of work and life. I was caught up in the pressure to achieve more, to be more, and to constantly strive for the next milestone. It was during this time that I started a gratitude journal, writing down 3 things I was grateful for every day. At first, it felt like a small, insignificant practice, but over time, it transformed my outlook on life. I began to notice the little things, like the laughter of a friend, the kindness of a stranger, the warmth of the sun on my skin. These moments, which I had previously overlooked, became sources of deep contentment and joy. Contentment, as taught by the Buddha, is not passive resignation but an active practice of appreciating the present moment. It means being at peace with what we have right now, without constantly striving for more. This doesn't mean we stop working towards our goals or dreams, but rather that we cultivate a sense of inner peace, knowing that we are already enough. It is the recognition that we don't need to chase after the next big thing in order to feel complete. We are already complete. In Buddhist philosophy, the practice of sampajana, clear comprehension, encourages us to be fully aware and present in whatever we are doing. This mindfulness can be applied to the practice of gratitude, helping us savor each moment and appreciate it for what it is. When we engage fully in the present moment, free from distractions or the desire for more, we naturally cultivate contentment. One powerful way to practice gratitude is through mindful reflection at the end of each day. Instead of focusing on what went wrong or what we didn't accomplish, we can reflect on the positive moments, the small wins, the things that brought us joy. This practice doesn't require grand gestures. Even the smallest acts of kindness or moments of peace can be sources of deep gratitude. Gratitude also helps us cultivate a more positive mindset. When we focus on the things we are thankful for, we train our minds to see the good rather than the bad. Over time, this shift in focus can have a profound impact on our overall mental and emotional well-being. We begin to feel lighter, more at ease, and more connected to the world around us. In our material-driven world, it's easy to think that happiness is something that can be bought or achieved through external means. But the Buddhist teachings remind us that happiness is not something we can chase. It is something that arises naturally when we let go of our constant craving and appreciate what we already have. True happiness comes from within, and gratitude is one of the most powerful tools we have to access it. Contentment, too, is a practice of non-attachment. It's about letting go of the desire for more and accepting that what we have right now is enough. This doesn't mean we stop striving for personal growth or improvement, but it does mean that we are not tied to the idea that we will only be happy once we've reached a certain goal or acquired certain possessions. When we embrace contentment, we free ourselves from the endless cycle of wanting and striving, allowing us to enjoy the present moment. As we continue to practice gratitude and contentment, we start to notice a shift in our overall sense of well-being. We become less fixated on what is missing and more attuned to the richness that already exists in our lives. We learn to appreciate the beauty of ordinary moments, and in doing so, we unlock a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment. Ultimately, practicing gratitude and contentment is about coming to terms with the fact that we are already enough. We don't need to be anyone else or have anything more to experience happiness. The abundance and joy we seek are already within us, waiting to be noticed and embraced. When we cultivate a heart of gratitude and a spirit of contentment, we find that the simple, everyday moments of life become the very source of our deepest peace and fulfillment. 12. Embracing the journey of self-discovery. Self-discovery is not a destination. It is a lifelong journey of exploration, growth, and awakening. In a world that often urges us to conform to external expectations or measure our worth by external achievements, the path of self-discovery invites us to turn inward. The Buddha, in his teachings, reminds us that true wisdom arises when we question, reflect, and explore our inner world. This is a deeply personal journey, unique to each individual, and it requires both patience and courage. The process of self-discovery often begins with a simple question: who am I? Really? On the surface, we may identify ourselves with roles, labels, and the stories we've been told about who we should be. But when we peel back these layers, we begin to encounter our truest self, a self that is beyond societal expectations, beyond the labels we carry, and beyond the transient desires that often dominate our lives. This journey is not always comfortable. It may bring us face to face with parts of ourselves that we have avoided or denied, our fears, our insecurities, and the aspects of our personality we may not fully understand. But these discoveries are not to be feared. In Buddhism, there is a term called vipassana, which means clear seeing or insight. Vipassana practice teaches us to observe our thoughts, feelings, and experiences without judgment, simply allowing them to be as they are. This is a crucial part of the self-discovery process, learning to see ourselves clearly, with compassion, and without the need to label or judge. As we begin to peel back the layers of our ego, we uncover deeper layers of wisdom that have always been within us. We start to see patterns in our behavior, understand the roots of our emotional responses, and recognize the ways we've been conditioned by our upbringing, culture, or past experiences. This understanding does not happen overnight, nor is it linear. It unfolds gradually, often in moments of stillness and reflection, where we allow ourselves to simply be present with whatever arises within us. Self-discovery is a dynamic process. Just as the Buddha encouraged his followers to question everything, we must question the stories we've been telling ourselves. Who are we when we strip away the labels, the expectations, and the judgments? Who are we when we stop chasing external validation and start embracing our own inherent worth? The answers may surprise us, but they lead us to greater authenticity and peace. I recall a time in my own life when I was caught in the hustle of pursuing success, always striving to be more, do more, and achieve more. But as I began to dedicate more time to meditation and self-reflection, I started to notice how these external goals were no longer fulfilling me. It was in these quiet moments of stillness that I began to understand the deeper yearnings of my heart. I realized that what I truly sought was not more accomplishments, but a deeper connection with myself. This realization was a turning point in my journey of self-discovery, teaching me that true fulfillment does not come from outward success, but from an inward alignment with who we truly are. Through mindfulness, we begin to develop a deeper awareness of our thoughts and emotions, noticing how they shape our actions and reactions. Mindfulness creates the space for us to observe ourselves without getting lost in our habitual patterns. It allows us to witness the ebb and flow of our feelings and thoughts without becoming overwhelmed by them. This practice helps us create a deeper connection with our true self, one that is not based on external conditions or fleeting desires, but rooted in the present moment. Self-discovery also requires an openness to change. As we grow and evolve, we may find that our values, desires, and even our identity shift. What once seemed important may lose its meaning, and what we thought we wanted may no longer align with our authentic self. This is natural and part of the process. The Buddha teaches that impermanence is a fundamental truth of life. As we embrace this truth, we allow ourselves to let go of rigid attachments to who we think we are or who we should be. We become more flexible, more open to growth, and more willing to embrace the unknown. There are times when the journey of self-discovery feels uncertain or even uncomfortable. We may face periods of doubt, confusion, or resistance as we confront parts of ourselves we've long avoided. But these challenges are not setbacks. They are opportunities for growth. As the Buddha said, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. When we embrace uncertainty with a curious and open mind, we create the conditions for profound insight and transformation. A key aspect of self-discovery is embracing vulnerability. It takes courage to face our flaws and imperfections, but it is in these moments of vulnerability that we often find the greatest growth. The act of being vulnerable, of showing up authentically, with all of our imperfections, is not a weakness, but a strength. It is through vulnerability that we connect with others on a deeper level. And it is through embracing our own vulnerability that we cultivate compassion and understanding for ourselves. One powerful way to deepen our self-discovery is by cultivating a regular meditation practice. Meditation helps us slow down, tune in, and observe the workings of our mind. It teaches us to sit with whatever arises, whether pleasant or unpleasant, and to simply be present with it. Over time, meditation deepens our understanding of ourselves and allows us to access deeper levels of insight and wisdom. The Buddhist teachings remind us that the journey of self-discovery is ongoing. It is not a destination, but a continuous unfolding of our true nature. As we continue to explore and reflect, we gradually uncover the wisdom, peace, and clarity that lie within us. Each moment becomes an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to become more fully ourselves. Self-discovery is not about becoming someone we are not, but about uncovering the person we have always been beneath the surface. It is a journey of self-acceptance, self-love, and inner peace. Through mindfulness, reflection, and compassion, we come to understand our true nature, and in doing so, we uncover the wisdom and clarity needed to live a more meaningful and fulfilled life. As we embrace this journey, we are reminded that there is no right or wrong way to walk this path. Every step, every experience, every challenge is an integral part of our growth. We learn not to judge ourselves for where we are, but to embrace where we are as part of our own unfolding process. In the end, self-discovery is about returning home to ourselves and recognizing that the wisdom and peace we seek have always been there, waiting to be uncovered. Focusing on ourselves is often misunderstood in a world that values external achievements and constant striving. In truth, this inward journey is not an act of selfishness, but one of profound courage and necessity. It is an invitation to explore the depths of who we truly are, free from the distractions, judgments, and pressures of the outside world. By turning our attention inward, we are not abandoning others or neglecting our responsibilities. Instead, we are cultivating the strength and clarity needed to show up fully in the world and in our relationships. Self-love, mindfulness, and self-care are the pillars that support this journey. These practices are not mere rituals, but essential tools that allow us to reconnect with our authentic selves. Self-love is the gentle foundation that nurtures our growth, giving us the permission to honor and care for ourselves. Mindfulness helps us stay present, enabling us to become more aware of our thoughts, emotions, and actions, so we can respond with wisdom and compassion. And self-care ensures that we remain balanced and energized, giving us the capacity to handle life's challenges with resilience and grace. When we prioritize these practices, we lay a strong foundation for personal growth and inner peace. Instead of searching for validation from external sources or constantly chasing after fleeting desires, we begin to realize that true fulfillment comes from within. It is a deep, quiet knowing that we are enough as we are. As we embark on this journey inward, let us approach it with open hearts and minds. It is an adventure, sometimes joyful, sometimes challenging, but always worthwhile. Every step we take on this path of self-discovery leads us closer to our truest self, helping us to live with greater clarity, authenticity, and peace. The most significant journey we can undertake is not a physical one, but a journey into our own hearts and minds. In doing so, we come to understand that the answers we seek, the wisdom we long for, and the peace we desire have always been within us. So, let us move forward, embracing this extraordinary path with patience and grace, knowing that the most transformative and meaningful adventure lies not out there, but right here, within ourselves. Every moment is an opportunity to grow, to reflect, and to deepen our connection with who we truly are. The path ahead is one of profound self-discovery, and it begins with the simple yet powerful act of turning inward. As we continue on this journey of self-discovery, remember that each step you take brings you closer to the peace, clarity, and purpose you seek. If you feel inspired to explore more about mindfulness, self-love, and personal growth, I invite you to join me on this path. Together, we can create a supportive community where we share insights, reflect on our experiences, and encourage each other toward greater peace and fulfillment. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an opportunity to continue growing with us. Let's embrace this extraordinary journey together, I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. What part of this journey resonates with you most? Let's support each other in this incredible adventure of self-discovery. Thank you for being part of this community. Let's continue walking this path of growth, love, and mindfulness, one step at a time.